14. Okay, cool. Everyone's happy. Okay, so
hello, can anybody hear me? Update required. Oh, for heaven's sakes. Hello, can anybody hear me? Oh, oh gosh.
Recording in progress.
But number two is you kind of create a world where it doesn't really matter how far the fire goes. So what I mean by that is, like I said, if you space the trees widely and you burn every fall, there's never too much fuel left on the ground to create a catastrophic fire. If you just burned last fall, right, or maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago, there's not that much stuff on the ground to burn up, and because your trees are spaced so widely, there's just a tree alone hanging out, and by the time that little short fire gets to the tree is such an old growth tree, it's so big that it's like it doesn't even feel it. It's like, oh, there's a little bit of fire, cool, and it might kind of char the outside of the tree a tiny bit, like literally just a tiny bit, but then the fire moves on to as it moves through, it moves on. So I think there was a lot of ways where fire was just so normal and we understood it was so regenerative that we weren't worried about it burning stuff. Of course, you have settlements, right, where you have houses, and I think a lot of those settlements would have fire breaks, so the closest flammable thing to your settlement would be 100 feet away, 200 feet away, 300 feet away, so that even if the fires came all the way up to your settlement, they wouldn't be able to reach you because you have fire breaks. So I think it was different then, right? Now there's all kinds of Smokey the Bear, like, oh, don't burn, burning is bad. But I think that in ye olden days, it was totally fine to burn, and it was expected to burn. And so, of course, the right time of year is super important, because sometimes you put fire on the ground and literally nothing will burn because it's so wet. I can speak from experience. It's actually like sometimes really hard to burn stuff, harder than you would think. So you have optimal conditions on a day, and remember, these people would be doing this for thousands of years, so they have really good, both each individual would have decades of experience to burn, and then they'd be standing on the shoulders of people who had thousands of years of experience. So I'm sure they had lots of tips and tricks of how to do it right. If you're burning like a field, for example, and the wind is blowing this way, you actually want to start burning this way. You want to burn against the wind, because if you start the fire on the part where the wind is starting, the wind will carry that flame really fast. But if you start on this side, let's say you have a big fire break, right? And then you're just starting here, the wind actually pushes the fire back and keeps it from going too fast along the ground. I actually did do a burn one time that way. It's very interesting. Actually, yeah, there's a whole fire exhibit in the Oakland Museum right now called Good Fire, and it's all about Indigenous burning. if anyone's in the Bay Area. So also creeks, creeks would be natural fire breaks. So my friend Marcus, he burns literally hundreds of acres at a time in Alabama. And I think that's so cool. Like, he just like, okay, we got a creek here and a creek here and a ridge. I forget how it all works. Or maybe a road here or something, right? So basically, if we just burn this whole chunk, it won't get out of hand because it can't. And so there's lots of different ways. I'm thinking about the picture behind me, right? I mean, not too big of a fire hazard, right? It's just like you just burn in the prairie. And so people would burn hundreds of acres at a time. In Australia, they burn even like a more of a desert type of landscape. And that actually helps to create biodiversity. Okay, I'll move to the next question if anyone has another question. Where do you see increasing uptake of these good ideas? I appreciate your evidence and experience that how we feed people is with practices that build soil and tend to the waters, and how you not feed people is commercial ag. Where do you see increasing uptake of these good ideas? I see it in organic, sustainable agricultural lands in respectful collaboration with Indigenous people in their own traditional territories. It's a good question. Well, I'll just say an easy thing I can say is Europe is much more receptive to my ideas than America is. I feel like in America, I'm always pushing against the grain and trudging through like really sludgy mud to just like exist as an Indigenous woman, much less like be heard. But once you finally reach people, it's like they can't get enough of it. But like just to get out there is sometimes hard. And Lisa and I have been working for 10 years to get my messages out there in different audiences, David, and they love it, but it's not yet fully on the mainstream yet, but we're working on it. Canada is much more receptive to Indigenous ideas, although I'm sure Canadians on the call will be like, not agree with me, but however bad it is in Canada, trust me, it's worse in the USA. Mexico has its own history of denigrating Indigenous peoples, and mestizaje being kind of a way of trying to distance ourselves from being Indigenous, even though everyone in Mexico is almost all Indigenous. So I think it's, and then there's some people who don't, this is not even on their radar, right? And they just want to do the next cool TikTok dance, and they want to drink the next cool beer and go to the next cool bar and drive the next cool car. And they're literally like, don't even care, but they're about to care when there's no more food in the grocery stores. Then they'll care. They're like, oh wait, hold on, what's going on? Do I live in a world? Is there water here? Is there rain? Is there clouds? Is there mountains? Is there soil? Oh yeah, I'm a person who has to eat. So we'll get there. But I guess to answer your question more detailed, I feel like these ideas are definitely in the regenerative agriculture community, obviously. These ideas are getting out there in the realm of universities. Universities tend to be places where we can start exploring these ideas. I do a lot of university speeches. Circular economy people are really into it. I don't know, maybe Lisa has ideas but we do a lot of work in a lot of different sectors, but I can't help but notice how Europe is just chomping at the bit to learn more and more and more. We have some folks joining who are not in breakout rooms. Welcome to we're in breakout room session for those who just joined. We're gonna bring the whole group back in a couple minutes. Okay, George asks, if regenerative ecosystem design was grounded in relationship with land rather than management of it, what principles or practices would you hope people would change first? Well, I think the principle of being a small being in a web of beings is really important to remember. I mean, yes, we are brilliant. Yes, we have amazing opposable thumbs. Yes, we are charming and interesting creatures, but we're also just like, we're not the center of the universe, and really honoring the personhood of other species. And just because something is not a human doesn't mean it's not a person. And just because these people don't have a voice doesn't mean that their lives don't matter. And looking to the plants and the animals as elders rather than as objects, because when they're elders, we can learn from them. We can learn from the hummingbird, we can learn from the deer, we can learn from the butterfly, we can learn from the worm, we can learn from the roots, from the trees, we can learn from the mountains. All these beings have their own strengths and skills that we don't have. And it's really important to be humble. Basically, I say humility is the biggest principle. I do use the term land management often, I will admit, but that's mostly because I'm trying to debunk the myth of the hunter-gatherer who doesn't touch the land and doesn't clip, doesn't prune, doesn't burn, doesn't select, doesn't curate, doesn't design. And I'm like, no. Indigenous, we manage the land. Like we were out there, we're up in the mix and we're doing stuff. So I do use that word management sometimes. Okay, I'm gonna bring people back in. It's gonna be a little abrupt for them, unfortunately. Actually, I'll give them a 60-second warning. Can I do that? No, I guess I can't. Yeah, I'm gonna bring them in. Thanks for your question, George. And yes, 1491's cool. I'm low-key bragging that Charles Mann is my friend and he is gonna write the foreword to my books. My buddy. Okay, all right. I am so sorry to just so abruptly yank you out of your beautiful conversations. Usually I have a 60-second warning, but today, I hope it was very abrupt. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Excuse me. Thank you for connecting with each other. We have a little bit of time to discuss what people came up with of how can we apply this to our world today. So I'm tempted to just give people the floor with the caveat that with respect and love, I will cut you off after 3 minutes, and I'm sorry in advance. But please go ahead if anyone wants to write in the chat the different ideas that you want to share from your small groups, whether it's how to implement these in the real world, or maybe just something that you just said that you were interested in. Yeah, please feel free to unmute or put in the chat. Or raise your hand and I can unmute you as well. Yeah, Jenna, go right ahead. Or Jenna, sorry.
Thank you, Yana here. Well, one of the things that was fascinating, maybe to kick it off, is just that we both in this group of two seem to notice that air is the starting point for each of the projects that we've had to have the opportunity to begin to undertake in our communities, and then recognizing even maybe more deeply than that within ourselves, the capacity, the necessity to retrain to allow, to listen, to be in that relational space, not just with the land, but mostly with each other, in order to begin to make shifts towards a continental management philosophy and a reintegration of deep Indigenous awareness that is a long weaving process, and we were just finding ourselves excited about things we had accomplished and yet returning to that. And I wonder if others encountered that too.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Stan, go right ahead.
Hello, Dr. June. Hello, everybody. Thank you for this great presentation. My area is social resource and social innovation. And what I'm actually picking up from your work and from reading your dissertation, that the most important thing is the interviews that you did with people and how you actually transfer the knowledge and how you actually build the value system and how you do communicate to change the culture. So from my point of view, from my experience, the pilot projects that need to be done around the country that will show that we have a way of continental management that was done by native people here and change the perception that native people, not just the savages running around, and that's it, because it's really ingrained in this culture, and a lot of structure depends on that. Lots of hierarchy depend on that knowledge, and if it breaks and people start to do local projects, pilot projects, that then they can be connected to a network of the system, some kind of in states or even county level, that will go from there. So this is what I think is, you described as the software system that need to be, first you need to debug, then to delete the viruses, then you need to install something that will work. So yeah, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to see if I can contribute.
Thank you, Stan, so much. Teresa.
Sionagad, Teresa Danguado. This whole entire course has been amazing. I live outside of Chicago. We have a large urban Indigenous community here. We have many, many nations that have been on this land. And I just want the little projects are what I think are going to help with these teachings. Salagi and Muskogee Creek. And just in the past 6 months got involved in a project that has had a long history, that has been struggling. And now we were offered some land by a historical society to create an Indigenous garden, a mound garden, and do teachings. And in all these connections and talking with people, now we have the Forest Preserve who's been very supportive, but gently, when they talk about their burns, incorporating the history behind those burns and the importance behind that. We get a lot of questions about these land practices and stuff like this, and even getting a little plot of land, it's half a lot where a house got torn down, and this spring we're going to break ground and we're going to have prayer over it. We're going to hopefully have spring corn ceremony and stomp dance and just all these beautiful incorporations. And I think the cool thing about Indigenous knowledge and history, you just have to step outside your house. If you're in Turtle Island, you're already there, and that land holds a lot of history. When I was getting the seeds and kind of really figuring out what was the most authentic crops or particular kinds that were grown, I thought about Teosinte, and I got really emotional because we talk about how things are cultivated by hands over time. And when we look at corn, and when we look what this little plant was, and the generations and generations and generations to give us what we call corn now, and all the beautiful varieties that we have, I think it's that love that's poured in and that respect that's poured into these plants that are continuing to feed us and nourish us and give us use today. So I hope everybody, what they take away from this is it can be the smallest thing, but keep pushing, because you never know what kind of beautiful work you're going to get out of it. So thank you, Manal.
Thank you. So appreciate that. Lots of hearts and claps and appreciation in the chat. Sean. Sean Carter. Let me see if I can unmute you. There you go.
Hey, sorry. Hi,
Oh, good.
this is Sean Carter. I'm from St. Louis, the original mound builder and Illini Confederacy land. Real excited to hear that in Chicago. Love to come out there sometime. Invite me up. What resonates with me with the course has been great too, by the way, is fire I've been really trying to make biochar the last year, and real inefficient ways to make biochar. I was looking at the most efficient way to do it properly, and it just kind of, I don't know, morphed into something. I ended up being in a breakout room with someone else that's biochar is resonating with, and I think it's really one of the most important tools we could use to start to heal the land. And it's really cool to see so many people engaging in ancient indigenous knowledges and stewardship. I took my first permaculture class with Starhawk in like 2017, and I really since then I found that we all could really kind of agree. I would imagine we could agree that clean soil, air, water, and healthy people is something we all could agree that we, no matter what your pigmentation or background, we all want that for our kids and our posterity. So, but I also see that the fire is so necessary to burn away the old, right? We see all these things coming up in politics and world governments and new wars. Like, I can't find a machine that's efficient in this country that anyone makes. Like, you have to look to our southern kinfolk to find really good biochar kilns that are not wasteful, right? And so I've been in correspondence with someone from Thailand to try to get one of these machines here, and it's impossible now because of the new destruction that my country decides to wage on the brown people. So I think that, like, burning away the illusions of colonization and what that thing has brought us and how much destruction in such a short amount of time, we're all going to be forced to burn away our illusions and go back to an indigenous way of conducting ourselves with nature in symbiosis. So I won't take up too much time on a soapbox, but I think that starting where you're at, my instructor, I'm taking this class, this other class real quick. He's a Booker T. Washington fan, and he says sometimes you have to drop your pail where you're at. Even though I'm not where I want to be locally, I am where I grew up. This is my home. I have to drop my pail where I'm at and start remediating the soil and people. Because if you know something about the St. Louis region, like, we got to do where we are. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sean. That's a really good, what's the word, proverb for me too, because I'm always like, I gotta do it all. It's like, no, you gotta do what you can do. Alex.
Hello. My name's Alex.
Hello.
Thank you so much for the class, and thank you for everything. It's been great. I've been tuning in for a while now and learning a lot. I'm from homelands of Miami and Potawatomi here in Indiana, and I live on a 17-acre farm. It's a nonprofit-owned communal land, and we're essentially trying to steward the land here. And we host these stewardship days and trying to create that stewardship mentality kind of here in the city. This little parcel is embedded in the city of Indianapolis, and so a lot of our work here is trying to regenerate the soil. We try to pick up the trash, and we have rain catchment systems, and really grateful for this regenerative model, trying to think in terms of how the Indigenous stewarded the land. And we've connected with a few Indigenous elders and communities here, and did an acknowledgement here, and a land acknowledgement and honoring here during our spring planting last year. So they came and sang songs while we were planting. It was really beautiful with the drum and singing songs. And I'm looking at kind of trying to build bridges. We're trying to build bridges here with people in the urban context to be able to, like, connect with land and to heal, and kind of on the front lines for people that really need this kind of facing nature deficit disorder here, just going outside and connecting with the land and planting. And I also teach at a wilderness academy here, and we teach how to do ancestral skills, basket weaving and making bows and hunting and scouting, tracking, things like that. So I've really been appreciative, and I'm one of the big steps I want to taking from this course is fire. I really want to work with fire with our garden plots and our fields here. It's kind of a challenging space because we're in a residential area, so we have houses around our land here, and so trying to think of ways to to really do it safely and do it in a good way. But I really appreciate the class and the chance to share it. And I got my bird feeder set up at my little medicine area in the garden. Little red-tailed red-shouldered hawks come visit it once in a while. See them pretty close up. So really appreciate it.
Oh, that's so sweet. You get to feed the hawks. That's a fun activity. It's a fun hobby. Thank you, Alex. Jupong Lin.
Thank you. I'm speaking from Nipmuc homelands in western Massachusetts. And I just wanted to share briefly, there's so much wonderful stuff going on here. What I am most encouraged by is the solidarity between Black and Indigenous and people of color, farmers and food growers, and really trying to do agroforestry in a way that is all the things you talked about, regenerative, and really looks to the wisdom of Indigenous foodways. And I just wanted to share that the chestnut, I was really excited to hear you talk about chestnut trees, which are really making a comeback in western Massachusetts. So yeah, I just wanted to put a little, put Western Mass in the picture here. Thank you.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I agree. I love going to that area. Mutasim.
Yes, hello. Okay, just checking I can be heard.
Yes.
Okay, good. So my name is Mutasim. I'm in Jordan, not in the States, nor in, I've noticed lots of people are in Europe or the States. This is all very new to me. I'm really excited because I literally knew about your course yesterday. I'm starting a course next week called by Skill Up in Climate Solutions and Strategies. And they had your TED Talk as a recommended video to watch. And so that's how I knew about you. And basically in Jordan, I've been thinking about it for a couple weeks now because I have to do a project by the end of the course. And I'm thinking a lot about farming and just regenerative farming and seeing what we're missing, let's say, in Jordan. For example, we have one successful project I would think of. It's called Amhil Barakah, and it's focused on wheat agriculture or barley agriculture. And in that domain, we have this local that helped restore certain fields so that we can have wheat again. Because let's say historically, lots of fields of wheat have been cemented, etc., and just industrialized. And it's very sad, let's just say. But on another side, I think I want to see if I can interview basically farmers and see if I could use the fire burning techniques, because we've had some situations, not as big as California's, but we have burning situations or wildfire situations. So yeah, I really want to see what we're missing when it comes to our fruits, our vegetables, anything, because I feel like we have a strong attachment to our country and what we used to grow here in the past. So yeah, that's basically why I'm here. I really hope it goes well.
Thank you so much, John. Rice.
Hi, my name's John Ferris. I live in California, up in Northern California, in Marin County. And my background is I'm a chef that works with native ingredients, native to the Americas, plants that can provide food. And part of my goal has been to be able to teach about that. But also, how can you also reach people that are not perhaps they don't know anything about this, and through all of this, by spring, probably next month, in the next couple of months, I'd like to maybe have a seed exchange locally, And I used to live on a farm for about a year and a half, and I grew a lot of things and saved a lot of seeds. And I thought maybe just being there with the seeds, talking to people about it, giving some away, and you know, starting a conversation around the whole agricultural community agricultural thing, I think is very invaluable to people that didn't know that they could be involved. And I think that's one way to reach people at a level that, like I said, they may not realize that they were interested in. And so I think a seed exchange, and then maybe hopefully from there going into like a community garden. So I mean, those are ideas that I hope to implement in the next month or two, probably a month and a half, trying to get it organized. And maybe along the way there'll be enough people there that can help organize and donate and give away seeds and exchange knowledge. It's a pretty exciting time, actually, I think.
Agreed. Thank you so much. And I do have just a few slides that I want to show to end our class. I do see Dylan, Jordan, Nancy, and Melissa with questions. If you don't mind, I know this is not as fun, but if you could put your questions in the chat if you want, and if not, it's okay. But at least I want your question to be aired out, because it might be the same question other people have, and then a lot of people will answer them in the chat, and I'll try to as well. Before we go on, I'm just gonna, oh, here it is, okay. I'm gonna share a little thing that I did on the policy aspect of this, so like, AKA, how do we implement these ideas? And for federal agencies, what I suggested was return supervision of various homelands to traditionally trained Indigenous stewards as Indigenous land management pilot projects. So for example, national parks, it would be an easy one. Engage in meaningful cross-cultural trainings for land management, nutrition, and agricultural departments by traditionally trained Indigenous elders and community members. For example, I've given trainings at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Department. I've given trainings at when Biden passed the really cool MOU that all federal agencies would have to learn from Indigenous ecological knowledge. Design food and land management systems similar to Indigenous regenerative practice case studies. In other words, you know, take these ideas and, well, don't take them, but take them respectfully and learn from them and apply them to their own federal agencies. Study and integrate the same value systems that sustained Indigenous regenerative practice case studies into federal land and food programs. So that's sort of what, for federal agencies, I know those aren't, I mean, the funnest one is number one, right? Like, just give it back to people. For grassroots communities and possibly in partnership with contemporary Native governments, that's all of us in this room, right? Here's my recommendations is invest in Indigenous-led, culturally grounded research that recovers and revitalizes our ecological, food system, land management, and linguistic sciences. In other words, in the universities, how can we invest in more research that is Native-led and Native curated and interpreted? Secondly, establish institutions whose campuses house and support this research, recovery, and revitalization of traditional Indigenous land care strategies. So we need more ReHuman schools. We need more campuses where this knowledge gets out there and where this research can occur. There's lots of Native American PhD students and master's students and non-Native students as well who are interested in this, who can do a lot of the legwork so that not all Native people have to do it. So those collaborations are good. Invest in pilot projects on remaining homelands that embody traditional food system principles, values, goals, strategies, properties. In other words, there are people already doing all this, and you just got to invest in those, whether it's monetarily or volunteering. There's a lot of Native land trusts going on right now. Just, you know, keep donating to them your money or your time and keep collaborating with them. They're all over the place. For non-Indigenous civilian groups, restore lands to traditionally trained Indigenous elders and community members, aka land back, or if you have a land base that's 100 acres, give 20 of it to the local nation to just say, hey, why don't you just go crazy here for 5 years? Let's see how it goes. Like, do your thing. Let's see what happens, Consolidate non-Indigenous civilian, I think it's what it's supposed to say, land holdings for holistic community management. In other words, as settler communities, can we collapse our individual land holdings into collective management so that we can work more holistically? Support, fund, and volunteer for Indigenous-led ecological projects. I think I already said that. Place human resources, capital, and equipment of academic institutions at the service of Indigenous principal investigators, aka Native scientists, to fulfill the research agendas of Indigenous communities. In other words, universities have laboratories, they have research interns, they have funding. Why don't we put all of that in the service of the research agendas of Indigenous communities? And number 5, support voluntary land tax programs, which I'll explain what that is in a second, that forward funds to grassroots Indigenous regenerative projects within given tax districts. For example, the Shumi land tax program of Oakland, California, where basically all settler communities pay an annual fee for squatting on Indigenous lands. Like all of Oakland, right? Like we pay Shumi to the Lishan Ohlone people, and they take that money and they've been buying land back for their communities. They've been building roundhouses in places where there haven't been roundhouses in 100 years. They've been restoring trout to the local creeks in Oakland. And so these land taxes allow settler society to be accountable to the local communities where they are by collectively paying taxes to the local tribes. And of course, unfortunately or fortunately, this is all voluntary. So Native nations can't really demand it, nor do I think we want to. We're not really taxing people. But if people voluntarily want to give Shumi each year, which means gift, in reciprocity with the local Indigenous community, that's a really cool thing. And these land taxes are popping up all over the country, and you could help start one in your area too. Okay, right, so those are just some ideas for people to ponder on. And lastly, we're gonna end this class by talking about how to integrate this knowledge respectfully. For example, a lot of us kind of really love this stuff, but we're not sure how, if we're non-native, how do we respectfully integrate it into our research, into our gardens, into our homelands? And I'm not going to give you the whole answer right now because I don't have time, but I want to give you just some food for thought. And we do have a course called Building Solidarity with Indigenous Communities, which maybe, Hallie, you could put in the chat. And that course, you can take it retroactively. It's already over, but you can take it, watch the recordings, see all the materials, do the worksheets. It's all there. So basically, with Native knowledge, the biggest thing is, again, why are you using it? If you're doing it to help the world and help your community, that's the spirit with which our knowledge was formed. And that's the spirit with which we need people to use it. What it's not for is self aggrandizement. It is not for self-gain. It is definitely not to be profited from. We do not want people to publish big books and become famous because they learned from an Indigenous medicine person about such and such thing. And so this knowledge is really meant to be used only to be of service to the community and to the land. It's not meant to be used to become famous or make money, basically. Secondly, it should be used in consultation with the local communities. and in reciprocity. So that's why I'm so excited to go to Brazil next week, because I've been talking about this soil system of the Mabengocre for years. And now it's my chance to go there and volunteer for a week and just say, hey, what do you need? Put me to work. How can I be of service to your communities? How can I not only be volunteer on the ground that week, but how can we form a partnership that is lifelong, so that they know they can always pick up the phone and call Lyla and say, hey, can you help us with this? And I will always say yes. So meeting face to face with Indigenous communities on their terms in their spaces is really fun. For example, maybe they're hosting a public powwow, you can go. Maybe they're hosting a public lecture, you can go. Coming to these classes is exactly because you're coming on our terms, right? And we're sharing information in the way that we want to, instead of sort of roping Indigenous peoples to you and say, hey, I want to talk to you about this specific thing, you know. That's sort of you're controlling how the relationship is. Try to be humble and meet with Indigenous peoples on their terms and say, hey, I would like to meet with you and learn from you. What's a good place? What's a good time? What's a good way? And really do it on their terms, and be ready for the answer of, sorry, I don't have time to meet with you. Another really good way to learn Indigenous knowledge is through service learning, where you go and volunteer with the local nation and you say, hey, I just want to offer 2 hours a month to your community, you know, put me to work. Then you're going to work with them on their terms, so that and you, maybe they'll have you, you know, delivering diapers to the mothers who need them. I mean, it might be something that you wouldn't expect, but you're going to learn something in that process that you also wouldn't expect. And so always remembering that, you know, there's different ways for us to learn, other than going there to learn the thing we believe we're there to learn, but really honoring what they want to teach you in that moment, and not asking a lot of questions, but just observing and taking it in, instead of saying, hey, what's this, and what's that, oh, by the way, how do you say this, and by the way, what's this, but rather just showing up and allowing the world to teach you what it wants to teach you in the way it wants to teach it. I think that's a really fun way to learn, and you kind of learn by osmosis rather than by prodding and extracting. You just kind of among it, and you just learn by osmosis. And yeah, so I think too, remembering that this Indigenous knowledge is just a reflection of your own Indigenous self. Never forget that you too have Indigenous roots, whoever you are. You too have Indigenous homelands, wherever you are. And you too have ancestors that had a brilliant, beautiful local knowledge. And we just published a book, and when I say we, I mean my friend Julia Watson, called Low Tech Water, LOTEK, which stands for Local Traditional Ecological Knowledge Water. And she asked me to write the foreword for her book. And her book goes around the world looking at Indigenous technologies, we call them tech, TEK, technologies, of how to work with water. And so your people will be in that book, because it literally covers every continent. Either your people or your people's neighbors will be in that book. And to know that, to always tap into your own roots too, is so that when you go to a native people, you're not coming with an empty cup, but you're coming with a cup that either has a little bit in it that you've learned, or half, or a lot. You're coming as an Indigenous person as well, who has taken the time to honor your ancestors and research their ways, so that you come to us as nation building, nation to nation alliances, rather than, hey, I don't have a culture, what's your culture? But know that yes, you do have a culture, and maybe it's buried under literally thousands of years of torture, colonization, violence. But if you just go beneath those layers, you will see your ancestors are the same as indigenous ancestors that you're looking at. And we all were earth people at one point. And to honor those roots, to honor those value systems and those principles that your ancestors are wanting to give to you. Like the Irish alphabet is all based on trees. The beautiful yin yang symbol is all about the masculine and femininity of nature. I mean, there's so many brilliant things around the world that are in each of our individual ancestry that we need to tap into wherever we are. They found a 40,000-year-old clay effigy of a woman in Germany back in 2009. And so any Germans here, I don't want to hear you say I don't have a culture. You know, this effigy is of a woman, and it's said to represent the sanctity of the earth and the sanctity of the feminine. We find these effigies throughout Europe, and they radiocarbon dated this thing. It was 40,000 years old. So this is how long our ancestors have been molding the earth into the shape of a woman to honor the feminine spirit and the life-giving spirit of the earth. And that's who we are deep down. That's who we're designed to be, and that's what we gotta become again. And so that's another thing we always tell people of, how do I integrate this knowledge? Respectfully, well, remember that you also have knowledge and ideas deep down in there, and to go and to find them. Like Sankofa, you know, go back and get it. That's that beautiful proverb of different indigenous African cultures. Go back and fetch it. Go back and get it. So anyways, could talk on and on for a long time, but I think we are going to wrap up here. Thank you all for your time and your presence and your preciousness of your being. And thank you for your breakout rooms and being there with each other and for each other. And thank you so much to our ASL interpreters. You are everything. Really, accessibility is so important to us, and we don't always have the time to organize it, so thank you for doing that. And we'll try to get better at that too. And so send us an email if you ever want to talk about getting your ASL interpretation more standardized within our school. And keep checking ReHuman website. We have classes every month this year, so we're about to roll out our academic calendar, if you will. Everything from ancestral recovery to men's healing circles to women's healing circles to Danae, our friend Denisa on the call is going to teach about, you know, how do we implement these things that we talked about today. We have a lot of really juicy classes lined up for this year, so stay tuned. And with that, let's go ahead and finish with a grounding exercise the way that we started. Just put your feet on the ground, feel your weight of your body on the chair, and let's take 4 breaths to honor the 4 directions, 4 mountains, 4 elements, 4 seasons of life. Honor your heart, honor your spirit, honor yourself. Give yourself a big dose of self-love, self-forgiveness. We all make so many mistakes and blunders, but you know what? That's part of what makes us beautiful. And to really love yourself going forward today and allow that self-love to connect you deeper to Mother Earth, connect you deeper to Creator, and deeper to your purpose, and deeper to the gifts that you're going to bring to your local ecosystems and your families and your homelands, because it's really hard to love the world when we don't love ourselves. So really try to forgive yourself for any of your past mistakes and let yourself feel the sunshine again, and let yourself go out and really enjoy and embrace the beauty of this world, which is obviously so overwhelmingly beautiful. Okay, have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Recording.